Okay, great. Well, welcome. We're excited to see all of you for this wonderful session of Gray Anatomy with LMH Health. My name is Kathleen Morgan, and I work here at the library and help Laurel Lewis with the retroactive program, which is the overall series that this falls under. So today we are talking about blood sugar and healthy eating. And we're delighted to have Aubrey Koh with the LMH Diabetes Education Center as our presenter. Aubrey will tell you a little bit more about herself and has a presentation, a slideshow that she'll go through. If you have any questions in the course of the presentation, put those in the chat and I'll try to capture those so that we can get some good answers. And so we'll just kind of try it that way. And, you know, if at the end, if we've got some time, we can have people unmute and ask questions. But I will turn it over to Aubrey and we'll get underway.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you for the time to be able to talk today. My name's Aubrey Koh. I'm a dietitian and a diabetes educator. I work here at LMH Health. I have been here since 2021, and I specialized in diabetes education and got that additional certification in 2022. So I went to K-State. I've grown up in Lawrence, so I'm a KU fan, and then went to K-State. I'm a fan of both. And I live here with my husband, and we have a son. He will be 1 year at the end of December. So that's a little bit about myself. And so nutrition and blood sugar, it's a different perspective and a different way of looking at food and nutrition. Because things that may be healthy may not be balanced for blood sugar and vice versa. So it's a very different lens and perspective of looking at things. So first, briefly, why do we care to balance blood sugar? What are the benefits? Why is this helpful? Is it just for people with diabetes? Is it for everybody? So some of those benefits and just a little bit about why it's important. Because blood sugar affects every part of our body. With or without diabetes, there's blood flow and it's supplying energy to every cell in our body. So benefits of balancing blood sugar, it helps reduce risk of prediabetes or type 2, or for people who do have diabetes, then it helps to prevent complications by keeping blood sugars more stable and balanced. For everybody, it helps us just have more consistent energy throughout the day. It helps with weight management. It's good for heart health. So it affects the whole body. So our program, I work in the Diabetes Education Center at LMH, and we are accredited by the American Diabetes Association. So that's a good organization. And what they recommend, just as a big picture, and we'll get into all the details and talk about lots of specifics, but the big picture is that there's not just one diet or meal plan that works for everybody. That's one reason I enjoy being a dietitian, because it really needs to be personalized, and what works for one person may not work for the other person. So the goal is to find something that's sustainable and realistic for you. We want to avoid feelings of restriction or deprivation, because that's not sustainable if you feel really deprived. And it's about variety, flexibility, and choice. So we want to focus on maintaining healthy eating over the course of our life, not just for the next 10 days or 30 days. This is lifelong habits, and then also everything in moderation. So those are some guidelines coming into this. So food, some essentials of food and nutrition. Our food's made up of 3 main components or macronutrients: carbs, proteins, and fats. And we need all of these things. They're all important. They all have different roles and jobs in the body. So the first question is, what foods affect blood sugar? How do different foods affect blood sugar differently? It's the carbs, and they get a lot of attention and conversation. So carbs are what affect the blood sugar the most, and they digest the quickest. With protein and fat, those take longer to digest and break down. and they don't have that same effect on blood sugar that carbs do. So carbs that are eaten with fiber, protein, or with fat, they cause a slower, steadier rise in blood sugar. So our blood sugar doesn't go up as high or as fast if we balance the carbs and have something with them. So carbs, we'll dive into what exactly are the carbs, how do we balance them, but this is the big picture of how those three things affect our blood sugar. And just to note, carbs get a lot of attention. They're not bad, they're delicious. So we need some carbs. We don't need to cut them out. They're our body and brain's main source of fuel and energy. They have fiber. We'll talk more about fiber, but that's lots of benefits with fiber, including it's good for our digestion. So we don't need to avoid the carbs. Since they do affect blood sugar, we are aware of the portion and we eat them in moderation. So we're aware of them, but we're not cutting them out or restricting them. So the foundation number one, first we need to identify carbs and understand what are the foods that affect blood sugar. And so that's where we got to start. So the foods that have carbohydrates that will raise blood sugar, and again, these are not bad. We just are aware that they affect blood sugar differently than other foods. This includes grains, fruit or juice, dairy, especially milk. There's a couple starchy vegetables, namely corn, peas, and potatoes and sweet potatoes. And then everyone says, those are my favorite vegetables. So those are the starchy ones. The rest of the vegetables are very low in carbs. And then sugar is usually what people think of when they think carbs. So that would be sweets, foods that have added sugar in them, and then sugar itself. So it could be brown sugar, honey, molasses, maple syrup, table sugar, white sugar. All of those are going to affect blood sugar. So grains, when we're talking about grains, these are some things that this includes. So it includes wheat, rice, oats, barley, and then all the different kinds of grain products. So bread, cereal, crackers, pasta. So that's one big source of carbs are the grains and grain products. Another big source of carbs are fruit. And fruit has a lot of nutrition. And so it's good for us. It's got lots of vitamins and minerals. And fruit has natural sugar. It's naturally sweet. So it is something that affects blood sugar, some more than others. And so within fruit, the recommendations, variety of everything. Variety of fruits, good, because then you're getting a variety of different nutrients. Focusing on whole fruits, so the whole fruits have more fiber. Fresh fruit, frozen fruit, canned, not in a syrup, or if it is in a syrup, we can drain and rinse it off. And then easier on dried fruit because it's more concentrated. So raisins affect blood sugar more than grapes, at least for the size. And then also go easy on juice. Juice is absorbed a lot faster than the whole fruit because it doesn't have that fiber to slow it down. So how much fruit should we have? Include 2 or more servings a day. And a serving, just for reference, would be a medium fruit, like a medium apple or orange, half of a large fruit, or a cup of a diced or canned fruit. So fruit is another source of carbs. And milk. Milk was the one that kind of surprised me, is that there's carbs or a natural sugar that's found in milk. So lactose is where the carbs are coming from here. So the recommendations with milk are to do lower fat or fat-free. The carbs are actually the same between skim milk and whole milk. Carbs are the same. The lactose content is the same. It's different in calories and fat, but the lactose and the carbs are the same. There are some ultra filtered milks, and these might be helpful, especially if you really like to drink a lot of milk. Seeing how that affects blood sugar. So ultra filtered milk, and these are just these are the brands that am familiar with that do this. Carbmaster is a Kroger or Dillon's brand. Fairlife is one that's I see in pretty much every store. And then Organic Valley has one. So ultra filtered milk, it's still dairy, still coming from a cow. They filter out some of that lactose or carbs and it leaves more of the protein. So these would be milk that is easier on blood sugar. They also have a little bit longer shelf life. So that's an option. It's okay just to have regular dairy milk. But this is an option that's a little easier on blood sugar. And so including 3 or more servings of dairy a day is great. That's the recommendation. And a serving being a cup of milk or yogurt or ounce and a half of cheese. And then other kinds of dairy products like cheese, yogurt, cottage cheese, those have more of the protein and fat part of milk and aren't as high in the lactose or the carbs. So milk, ice cream, those are probably the dairy products that have the most carbs in them. So that was foundation 1 is first, just where are our carbs coming from? Foundation 2 is the portion. So everything in moderation, portion is something that's really important. So a big question, very common question that I'm asked is how many carbs should I eat? How many carbs a day? How many carbs a meal? And I say I have 2 answers. The first answer or the short answer is it depends. And people are like, that's not a very helpful answer. So something more concrete, a little bit more specific of an answer. And this is for all my numbers people. Some people really like numbers. You don't have to count carbs. Sometimes it's helpful, at least to look at a label or have an idea of carbs, but don't feel like you have to be counting and very precise and exact in how many you're eating. So some guidelines from the American Diabetes Association, 45 to 60 grams of carbs per meal. That's not talking about the whole day. That's just talking about one meal would be considered a moderate amount. So it's okay to do less than that if you don't want to eat that many. I'd be cautious about eating a lot more than that in a meal, 15 to 30 grams or so in snack. And then what's important also is to spread them out. So don't save them up. Calories kind of they work where you can save them. You can have them all for one meal, or you could have 10 different snacks. The total calories is what's most important. But the carbs don't work that same way. So if we were to save all of our carbs for the day, so if we're like, okay, I have 60 with each meal, so that's almost 200 carbs a day, I'm going to have them all for dinner. That's going to be hard on blood sugar to have that many at one time. So blood sugar does better when we spread the carbs out throughout the day rather than having them all together. And with the label, if you don't have to read the whole label, there's a lot of numbers and a lot of content on that label. The most helpful number on there that I'm referring to when I'm saying 45 to 60 is the total carbohydrate. And I don't look at the percent, I just look at the grams. So this example has 13 grams of carbs. And that includes everything. That includes the fiber, that includes the sugar, that includes any added sugar. All of that is part of the total carbohydrate. So you don't have to add or subtract.
I've got a question in the chat from Shelley.
Yes.
She said, I've read recent recommendations to consume whole milk in moderation rather than skim because the fat slows absorption and fat isn't as evil as reported. Is that wrong?
Good question. And from a blood sugar perspective, that is actually true because the whole milk does slow down the absorption. So if you are treating a low blood sugar, you could use skim milk. 8 ounces of skim milk would treat a low blood sugar. I would not recommend a whole milk to treat a low blood sugar because the fat will slow it down and it won't go up as quickly. So from a blood sugar perspective, yes, that is true. Good question. So with that label, all of the numbers on the label, the total carbs, that is all per serving size. So the serving size is not telling you you should only eat half of a cup. We can have a whole cup, we can have 2 cups, we can have quarter of a cup. We can decide what we want our portion to be. It's just telling us per the serving size, here's our carbs that we're eating. So that's with the numbers. Another method that helps with portion, this is a method I like. It's the plate method, and there's no numbers with this. So this is for the people who are not in love with all the numbers. So with this, we have maybe a fourth of the plate carbs, and it helps to think of it as a side. Here's another picture of that plate method. So the carbs are on a quarter of the plate, and that's still part of the meal. We're not taking it off the plate, but it's not the focus. It's not the main part of the dish. So especially things like rice and pasta, those do affect blood sugar pretty quickly. And so try not to think of it as like a pasta dish or a rice bowl where that's the entire meal and then we add some things on top. It can be part of the meal, but think of it as a side. Make sure we've got protein, veggies, we've got other things to offset it and balance it out. And this is based off of a 9-inch plate. So not a 12-inch dinner plate, but more of a lunch-sized plate. So that's one guide that you can use to help with portion. So 1/4 carb, 1/4 protein, and then half low carb or non-starchy vegetables. And I like this method also because you have a lot of variety and a lot of choices with it. You're not stuck eating the same things. A lot of people say, I like meat and potatoes. This is an example with meat and potatoes. So that's an easy guideline or rule of thumb is that plate method. So the portion of carbs is important. The type of carb is also important. So foundation 3 is with fiber. And not all carbs are created equal. So carbs could be talking about fiber, carbs could be talking about sugar and starches. All of those are types of carbs. So there's 2 main types of carbs, simple and complex, or you might hear fast and slow. And fast and slow talks about how quickly they digest and affect blood sugar. So complex carbs or carbs with more fiber are easier on blood sugar. They're more slow. So faster carbs will have more of that spike in blood sugar where it feels a little bit more like a roller coaster, and slower carbs are a little bit more smooth and steady and stable. So protein, fat, and fiber are what create that more gentle slope in blood sugar. So an example would be like an apple versus apple juice. Maybe they both have the exact same grams of carbs. The apple is easier on blood sugar. It's more work to chew, digest. It's got more fiber. It keeps us feeling full a little bit longer than the juice would, even though it's the same amount of carbs. So the type of carbs matter. And with fiber, back to the label, and we won't spend too much time on numbers. So the fiber that's included in the total amount of carbs, if it's got 5 or more grams of fiber in a serving, that's considered a good source of fiber. It's a lot of it. The goal or the recommendation for the day is 25 grams of fiber for women, 38 grams of fiber for men per day. If you're not eating that much, don't just start eating that much. You want to increase your fiber gradually and also drink lots of water with that to help prevent side effects. So be gentle and careful of how quickly you increase fiber so that your gut has some time to adjust. And then with added sugar, less than 5 to 10 grams of added sugar in a serving. And the recommendation is to consume no more than 25 grams of added sugar for women or 36 grams for men per day. So if that's helpful for my number of people, those are some guidelines with that. So with fiber, it's found naturally in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds. All of those have a lot of fiber in them already. There's 2 kinds of fiber. They're both good. There's soluble fiber and insoluble fiber. Insoluble fiber is more roughage. So we don't digest it. It helps prevent constipation. It adds bulk to things. It speeds foods along faster through the digestive tract. It's great for blood sugar. Soluble fiber forms into more of a gel, so it's a lot more gentle and easy to digest. It can slow things down. The soluble fiber is especially helpful to lower cholesterol, and it really helps with blood sugar too. So fiber, in addition to digestion, it helps you feel full. And so it's great for appetite. It's good for weight because you feel more full. One soluble fiber that I like, and there's a lot of them out there, but psyllium. So the brand name of that is Metamucil, but it doesn't have to be brand name. There's a couple brands, or there's just the ingredient psyllium, and it's a fiber. It's more of a supplement. So I sprinkle some in oatmeal at times, or you can sprinkle it in yogurt or smoothie, but psyllium is a nice one to include or add. And that one's got good research that shows it can help with cholesterol and blood sugar. And it really does help you feel full. It's very filling. So fiber, looking at the ingredient and choosing things that are whole grains have more fiber in them. And so if it's the first ingredient listed, then we consider it a whole grain. So that one on the left has whole wheat flour, one on the right is more of an enriched flour. So whole wheat or whole grain just means it has the whole grain. It's got all three parts. It's got the bran. That's where a lot of that fiber is. With refined grain, it's missing one or more parts of that, and it's cutting out more of that fiber. You also might see a stamp, especially if it has that 100% in the middle of the stamp. That's how we can look for or identify, is this a whole grain product? Is it a product that has some good fiber? So with that plate method, non-starchy vegetables, this is also where we get a lot of fiber from. Make half your plate veggies. Vary variety, just like the fruit. Choose a lot of different colors. They can be fresh, they can be frozen. I like frozen because they're chopped up a lot of times. So it saves you prep time. They're not going bad. You're not wasting food. It's really easy just to pull out of the freezer and use. They're great in soups. You can air fry them or roast them in the oven. Canned vegetables are also good, especially if they don't have salt. And you can drain and rinse it to get off some of that salt if it does. And non-starchy vegetables are great for both fiber and feeling full and for blood sugar, and they don't have a lot of calories. So that's another benefit, and they have a lot of nutrition. So trying to include 2.5 or more servings of vegetables a day, a serving being half cup cooked or a cup of raw or 2 cups of leafy greens. My trick with vegetables is to make them taste good. Roasted. So like Brussels sprouts, they get a bad reputation. And I understand why, because maybe people grew up where they were boiled and they were little sulfur bowls that were not very appealing. It's very different if you roast things or grill them, something where they get crispy and blackened and charred, air fried, roasted. That's completely different. So they're both nutritious. The one that's roasted, I will eat probably that whole plate. The boiled ones, I might not put it on my plate. So how we cook the vegetables, make them taste good. That's my trick. Protein. So this is the fourth foundation. This is one of the most important ones. If you're going to do any of them, do protein. So protein with each meal, protein with snacks. Every time we have carbs, have a protein that goes with it to balance it and offset it. And aim for, if you like the numbers, 20 or more grams of protein in a meal. Protein with breakfast, that can help with your appetite the whole day, even into the evening. It helps with blood sugar. You're starting your day off well. If you have some protein with breakfast, blood sugars are starting the day, and that you're not fighting them. Because starting the day with higher blood sugars can be just make the rest of the day more of a challenge. So start your day well, set yourself up for success, have some protein with breakfast. A lot of American breakfasts are a lot of carbs, whether it be pancakes, waffles, cereals, toast, muffins, pastries, donuts. There's a lot of carbs that are part of our American breakfast. So have some protein with breakfast. And if you like the numbers and you're like, how much protein do I need? You can multiply your weight in pounds times 0.36. So if somebody weighs 200 pounds, that would be about 72 grams of protein a day. So if you want to know how much protein you need, you can use that as a rough estimate. And I would say that's more of a minimum rather than a maximum. So the type of protein is helpful, and this especially for the heart, because protein is great for blood sugar, but some is better for the heart than others. So lean proteins are more nutritious. So plant proteins like beans, nuts, quinoa, soy, those are really, really healthy. Fish and seafood at least twice a week or more. Unfortunately, that doesn't include fried seafood or anything like that. It could be maybe air fried or breaded, but fish and seafood twice a week, low fat dairy products, cheese, cottage cheese, yogurt, poultry without the skin, and then red meat in moderation. So that would include beef or pork. Once or twice a week would be moderation. And if it has the words loin or round, that's got less fat and that's a leaner cut of meat. And then processed meats like deli meat, hot dogs, bacon, sausage, those would do moderation of maybe once a week or so. And then what about eggs? That's another question where people are like, where do eggs fall? What's the recommendation on that? So they're great for blood sugar. The American Heart Association recommends a rough average of an egg a day or 2 egg whites per day or about 7 a week, give or take. So eggs are great protein. So the concept here is carb and protein. So like apple and peanut butter or toast and eggs or berries or fruit with some yogurt, some kind of combination. And that's probably the biggest thing for balancing blood sugar is carbs plus a protein. So if you're going to do any of these, the protein is probably the most important one. All right, foundation 5 is fats. So the fats really didn't affect blood sugar much at all. It took a long time to break down. So very minimal effect on blood sugar. They slow down our carbs. They help us feel full. They're staying in the stomach longer. Fats help produce different hormones in the body. These suckers have a lot of calories. so there had to be a catch somewhere. So it depends on the type of fat. Some are better for the heart than others. We definitely want to be mindful of the portion, especially because of the calories. So 2 or 3 servings of fat or oil per day, about 9 teaspoons. And an example of the serving would be a teaspoon of oil or margarine, tablespoon of mayonnaise, or 2 tablespoons of dressing would be one serving. So the type of fat does matter. And this is one where none of these are affecting blood sugar, like butter really is not affecting blood sugar. It definitely may be affecting our cholesterol though. And I love butter, but moderation, everything moderation. So there's saturated and unsaturated fats. Saturated fats raise our cholesterol levels. They're usually solid at room temperature, like with meat, butter, cream, fried things, the skin on poultry. So the type of fats to do more often would be unsaturated. Usually they're liquid at room temperature or in refrigerated temperatures. They could be mono or polyunsaturated. Both of these are good for our cholesterol, especially if they're replacing saturated fats. So avocado on toast, if you like avocado, that might replace butter on toast. And you can still do an egg on there. You could use oil with baking. That fatty fish is both protein and fat. Nuts and seeds. Those are great heart healthy fats, and they're really good for blood sugar as well. Trans fat is double trouble. It will raise our bad cholesterol and lower our good cholesterol. So this is the one that we really want to do in moderation. It's found in commercially fried things and baked goods, stick margarine, not really tub margarine, but stick margarine, frozen pizza, biscuits, pie crust, and products can say 0 grams of trans fats if they have less than half a gram per serving. So if you could look at the ingredients, if the ingredients say partially hydrogenated oil, it may have some trans fat in there. And then the calories. So protein and carbs, and this is another reason I like protein, is it's 4 calories per gram. The fats have 9 calories per gram, so over twice as many calories. And a cup of nuts, which would be healthy for your heart, good for your blood sugar. 1 cup of nuts has 700 or 800 calories, and that could be half or a third of our calories for the day. So it adds up fast. A tablespoon of oil has 100 calories. 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, 200 calories. So those portions add up very quickly.
So just to interrupt a little bit and back up to protein question. This is from Rita. I
Yes.
read somewhere it's good to eat bites of protein before eating other foods on your plate, and that helps. Before you eat anything else before meals, how does that help? Hope I got that right.
That is true. So with that plate where we've got like carbs and proteins and veggies that are all on the plate, the order can make a difference. So sometimes everything's mixed together, like eggs on toast or apple and peanut butter, those are mixed together, and that's okay. If things are separated out, especially if it's a dessert or something that really will affect blood sugar, the trick that you could try, and it's not a hard, fast rule, but it is a trick, you could have carbs last at the meal. Blood sugar does a little better if we eat them last. So we can start with the protein, we can start with the non-starchy vegetables. Having food on our stomach first before we eat carbs really slows the carbs down. A very similar example would be like alcohol on an empty stomach. You feel that real fast. And so I'd say, let's have some food on the stomach first. Carbs on an empty stomach do the same thing. So if we have carbs with nothing on our stomach, they digest very quickly. So the more either having things with it, or like your trick of having protein before carbs, that would be even a little better for blood sugar. Good question.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yeah, I love that trick.
Mhm.
Okay. Foundation 6, personalize it. So everybody responds differently. Everybody's blood sugar is unique. So 10 people could eat the same meal, same amount of carbs, same amount of protein, and you'd get 10 different blood sugar numbers. And so it's very individualized. So you could consider checking blood sugar. This is the best way to know how is something affecting me or not. It's very eye-opening. Sometimes we don't want to know, but it's very helpful to learn how your body responds to different food, different meals, different situations. So there's 2 ways that we can check blood sugar. There's a glucose meter, something that looks like this. You can buy them over the counter. You can get them in a pharmacy. You can get a prescription for them. A glucose meter or glucometer, you can get them from Amazon. And after a meal, if you were to check 2 hours or so after eating, you can learn, okay, I ate this, what did my blood sugar do? The other way that we can check blood sugar is through a continuous glucose monitor or a CGM. These are cool pieces of technology. They're usually, or up until a couple months ago, you needed a prescription for them. And they're designed for people who have diabetes, especially people who are on insulin. And so you had to have a prescription from your doctor. Insurance had to approve it or not. Now there are 2 that are over the counter that anybody can buy. So Dexcom you may have heard that brand. Their over-the-counter option that they came out with recently is Stelo. And it's designed for pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes who are not using insulin. So there's no alarms or alerts with this app. You do have to have a phone that the app works with. You buy it directly from their website. So Stelo.com is where you can get this. If you subscribe and save, it's $89 a month. And you get 2 sensors for the month. And you can see in real time, this is a picture of what the app looks like. You eat something and then you can watch as your blood sugar stays the same or it goes up or it goes down. And so that you don't see any blood, it saves your fingers. So the CGMs are very cool, and it's much more information than you might get with just a meter or with sticking your finger.
We have another question in the chat.
Yeah.
Some nutritionists and dietitians say research supports having a teaspoon of vinegar before meals that will help minimize glucose spikes. Is this based on enough research to be worth trying?
Yeah, it is. I'd say it's maybe not one of the heaviest hitters, but there is some research that shows that vinegar can help blunt a blood sugar spike. It is hard on the teeth, and so don't let vinegar sit on your teeth. Some people will do a shot of vinegar. Another way that might be more natural to incorporate vinegar would be as part of a vinaigrette dressing, or maybe when you're cooking to use red wine vinegar or use something when you're cooking. But yes, vinegar actually can be helpful with blood sugar. So that's,
And is the amount relevant? Like, I think actually it's probably a tablespoon. It's a capital T in the text. Or, I mean, does it matter how much? Like, is it a teaspoon? Is it a tablespoon? Is it a
good
half a
question.
cup?
It's not half a cup.
Yeah, sounds like a lot.
I don't have the amount off the top of my head.
Okay.
So, but it's not a half a cup. I think it's either a teaspoon or a tablespoon. Sounds
sounds right.
But
okay, great. Thank you.
Some people do a shot of it.
I've seen 1 tablespoon in 8-ounce cup of water before or with beginning parts of a meal.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's an option. I might use a straw so it kind of bypasses your teeth. So we just don't want it to erode the enamel that's on the teeth, or drink something that washes it off afterwards. Some people will do capsules. I don't know, like vinegar in a capsule or powdered vinegar, I think, but I don't think it's quite as potent as liquid vinegar. So I don't know. If you want to try it, if you're brave, if you don't mind vinegar, you could give it a try, especially if you were wearing one of these continuous glucose monitors, or if you have a glucose meter at home. You could check 2 hours after eating on a meal, the same meal, one where you have vinegar before it and one where you don't, and see for you if it makes much of a difference. So individual results may vary. So the other one that's over the counter, and it's designed for just overall health and well-being, it's not for diabetes, is Lingo by Abbott. The prescription one that Abbott does is Libre, Freestyle Libre, so that one may sound more familiar. Lingo is the over-the-counter option. You do have to have the app, and then hellolingo.com is where you can purchase this one. And I think it's very comparable with price. And then foundation 7, balance, not perfection. We want to make it sustainable, everything moderation. One rule of thumb is like a 80-20, where 80% of the time I'm eating foods that nourish my body, that are really healthy and mindful. And then 20% of the time we have some room for just some fun things. We have room for holidays, we have room for eating out and celebrations, and just food that's good for our soul. So it's not about 100%, 0%. These are not things that we have to do all the time because we can get burnt out with it. So 80-20 is a nice balance of things. Some honorable mentions, other things that can affect blood sugar. Water and hydration. Being dehydrated can cause blood sugar to be higher. And so if blood sugar is elevated, just drinking a glass of water helps start bringing it down. It dilutes the sugar in the bloodstream. Exercise and movement, it could be 10 minutes after a meal. 150 minutes of movement a week is a great goal. Stress is huge. Stress can really shoot up blood sugars, regardless of if we're eating or not. Sleep, when we are sleep deprived, nothing works as well. And we have a less than a 1-year-old at home, so sleep impacts everything. So when we are sleep deprived, blood sugars can be higher. Eating carbs last in the meal, I like that trick. This was a really interesting article or reference, is 42 factors, and Adam Brown is who put these together. There are 42 factors that can affect blood sugar. And I really like that it shows, yes, there's things that we can do that affect blood sugar. Our food, medicine affects it, activity. That's not the only things. There's biological things like the sleep and the stress and being sick. There's environment, whether it be the temperature outside or a hot shower. Some people who wear the continuous glucose monitor, they take a hot shower and they find that their blood sugar goes up from the heat, or vice versa. Some people say it drops. So temperature, knowing what our blood sugar is doing and just checking blood sugar, that feedback, that information, that can help us know what's making the biggest impact. That can in turn help us lower blood sugar more efficiently. So if you want to dive into the 42 factors and think that, and I would even say there's probably more than 42 factors, but there's at least 42 factors that affect blood sugar.
Yeah, Rita adds when she's sick, her blood sugar is higher also while on antibiotics.
Yes.
So,
Yes, definitely being sick or having any kind of infection. Steroids, it could be like prednisone. Steroids can increase blood sugar significantly. So lots of factors. And I think it's so easy to feel guilty if blood sugar is high, or like I did something wrong, or I didn't do something right, or something was my fault. And there's pieces we can control, and there's pieces that we don't have as much control over. So this might just help make sense of trying to understand, why is my blood sugar doing what it's doing?
mhm.
And it's complicated.
I'm seeing on the list of biological factors under these 42 factors, the
Mhm.
dawn phenomenon. Does that mean it's just higher, like when the sun comes up?
Essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, some people you might hear of people waking up, and this could happen early morning hours, like 3, 4, 5 in the morning, kind of an hour or two before we wake up. Or this could happen as we get out of bed and we stand up and our feet hit the floor, blood sugar goes up. And we're like, what did we do? We did nothing. We just got out of bed.
Yeah.
It's the body's process of waking us up. And it releases hormones to get us awake and moving. And it's like, here's some energy to get us up and moving for the day. And sometimes it gives us a lot of energy. So that's not your fault. It's nothing you can control. And I think it's confusing for people because they wake up and they didn't do anything, they didn't eat anything, and their blood sugar is really high or jumps up all of a sudden. Some resources. These are some of my go-to tools to make things easier. And this is part of the make it sustainable, is make it easy for yourself. The easier that we can make it, the more likely we are to do it. So American Diabetes Association, you don't even have to have diabetes to use this. My favorite part of their website is their food hub. So it's diabetesfoodhub.org. And they have thousands of blood sugar friendly, diabetes friendly recipes on here. And not only does it have recipes, but it will make you a meal plan and a grocery list for free. And so there's really practical meal planning tool to it. That's another common question I get is, tell me what to eat, or make me a meal plan, or give me an idea. You can use this website just for inspiration of ideas of food or things to try. And then you can have it make you a grocery list. and it's free. There's some apps. So if you like your phone and are tech savvy and you enjoy using that tool, these are 3 apps that I like to track food or nutrition. You can use them to count carbs. MyFitnessPal is a really user-friendly one. And all of these have a free version to it. Chronometer, the third one, is very sciencey. So it can tell you any and every single vitamin and mineral out there. There's a free barcode scanner where it can scan the label and tell you and pull it up and track it for you. So that one is a little bit more heavy on the numbers and more science-based. MyFitnessPal is a nice user-friendly big picture, and Lose It is another nice user-friendly one too. And then this is a nice resource. So it's Hy-Vee, and you don't have to shop at Hy-Vee, but the store has dietitians. They do free grocery store tours, and you can watch these online. So they have 8 or so different tours and topics. They have one for diabetes, which would be blood sugar friendly. They have just a very general navigating nutrition. There's eating healthy on a budget, all of these topics. And you get the link to the video so you can watch it on your own time. They do some online cooking classes, and they will periodically do free A1C blood sugar screenings at certain, I don't know if our Lawrence store always does these, but at least local in the Kansas area, some of these do them. So Hy-Vee is a nice resource, and you can find foods that they talk about on the tours at pretty much every grocery store. So you don't even have to shop at Hy-Vee. And then final resource, we're here. So this is our Diabetes Education Center. We work with type 1, type 2, gestational diabetes, pre-diabetes. It's a lot. And when you're trying to personalize it and understand your blood sugar and yourself, you don't have to figure it out on your own. So we're not managing medications, or we're not taking over your doctor's job or their role, but we can help with some personalized education. We can give you a free glucose meter. So it's me, and then there's Jim. He is our nurse diabetes educator. So we have a website right there, and then this is our phone number. So we are here for individual appointments, and then we also do a monthly group. It's the second Wednesday of each month from 6 to 7. We do it in person at LMH in one of the conference rooms, or we have it's a hybrid, so you can also join on Zoom. So if you're interested in that, we can get you on our monthly email list, and we can send you the Zoom link and the topic if that's something you're interested in joining.
There's a follow-up question in the chat. I've heard that following a plant-based diet, or mostly plant-based with fish, eggs, and cheese, can help lower blood sugar. Is that correct?
Yeah. That's one of the approaches. So the American Diabetes said there's several ways of eating that work to help manage blood sugar. Plant-based is one of them. Mediterranean or DASH diet is one of them. That plate method that we talked about, that's one of them. Could be like counting carbs. That can be an approach. So yes, plant-based can be a great option for balancing blood sugar. And a lot of plants have a lot of fiber. So I do like that method.
So what's the range you should shoot for? Like under 100, or or is everybody different in terms of like a blood glucose range?
Oh, for blood sugar goals?
Yeah.
Yeah, good question. It depends if you have diabetes or not. So if you have a diagnosis of diabetes, the blood sugar targets for after eating, the goal is to keep it less than 180. So keeping it less than that after eating. And then for fasting, the goal is to keep it less than 130. So that would be for somebody who has a diagnosis of diabetes. Anything just as to compare it to like what would be normal for a person who doesn't have diabetes. If it is less than 100 fasting, that's completely normal. If the fasting number is between 100 to 125, that would be kind of in a pre-diabetes range. If the fasting number is 126 or above, that is in a diabetes range. And then for after eating, if it's less than 140, just for someone who doesn't have diabetes, then that's completely normal.
Okay.
So if that helps just to kind of give a frame of reference.
Yeah.
Good question.
Any other questions that you're welcome to unmute, or you can put it in the chat? So I guess I could ask, like, what are the risks that are associated with uncontrolled blood sugar?
Good question. Yes. So first, keep in mind that all of the complications are preventable. So people who have diabetes can live for months and for years and decades with this condition, and it's possible to not have any complications. And that's the goal. This is something that can be, it's hard. It can be managed, and we can prevent all of the complications. They're not inevitable. So that's the encouraging part, and that's what we try to do. If blood sugar is high, and if it stays high, usually the complications are long-term. I think months and years. These are not complications that happen within days and weeks. They happen more long-term. Since blood sugar affects every part of the body, it's possible for any of our organs to get damaged over time. So it could affect our eyes and vision. It could affect wound healing. You may be more likely to get infections. It could affect your nerves, especially in your hands and feet. You might have some numbness and tingling and neuropathy. It could affect the kidneys. It can affect the heart. So really can impact any part of the body. So those would be some of the more long-term complications that we're trying to prevent.
And an answer to the question in the chat, will this be available to watch again? Yes, we are recording the program, and we will upload it to the library's YouTube channel. And the easiest way to get to that, in my opinion anyway, is to go to the front page, go all the way down to the very bottom of the front page of the library website, and click on the YouTube logo, and that will take you directly to the library's selection of programs. And then you there's a bunch of playlists listed. So if you hit playlist, find retroactive, and those are posted there. They're posted by date. So the more recent ones are on the top. So you just kind of scroll down, and that's easy to find that way. So yeah, it's always good to kind of go back, and because it's hard to capture all this while you're listening,
I have a question.
Yes.
Hi, Aubrey. Thank you for very good information and well presented. Of course, Kathleen, as always, thank you for hosting these things. My question is, when I get back lab results, and I'm looking at the I am pre-diabetic, and so I'm trying to not go there. So it's the hemoglobin A1C that I'm interested in.
So A1C is another tool that you can use to monitor blood sugar. So that would be like the lab when you go to your doctor's. So A1C measures what has my blood sugar been on average for the last 3 months. Because when we're checking blood sugar with one of those meters, it tells us here's what it is right now. And it fluctuates a lot throughout the day, throughout the week. And so the A1C, or hemoglobin A1C, tells us a 3-month average. And that, they give it to you in a percent. So it's like 6% or 7% or 14%. and it's a different number than what you would see on your glucose meter. So the ranges for the A1C, if it is 5.6 or below, completely normal. If it is 5.7 to 6.4, that's in the pre-diabetes range. Pre-diabetes can be reversed and not turn into type 2. It can also be stabilized and just kept in that range for months or for years. Even if it's not going back down, it may not be going up, and stable is good. If it is 6.5 or above, that's in the diabetes range. And the goal for somebody who has diabetes is to keep the A1C less than 7 for most people. It can be individualized, but for most people, less than 7 helps prevent complications.
Okay, very good. When you keep talking about spikes,
Yeah.
because okay, so that's an average of 3 months. Are spikes, and even when you get out of bed, you know, it spikes up and blah blah and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is my goal to is the goal to just try to not have spikes and lows?
Good question. I would say it's the extent that it's going up and down, because blood sugar goes up and down throughout the day for everybody. So we want to avoid the highs, and we definitely want to avoid the lows. So low would be considered less than 70, or if you don't have diabetes or pre-diabetes, then in the 60s would be okay as long as you feel fine. But for someone who has diabetes or is on insulin, less than 70 is considered low. So you're right, the average A1C is the average, and that could be a flat line, or it could be a lot of ups and downs, and the average could equal out to be about the same. So I'd say the more smooth and steady that line, the better we feel. The target range that we're trying to stay in is between 70 and 180. It's like with the continuous glucose meters, it gives you a range of 70 to 180. And we want to be in that range 70% of the time or more. So time in range is another way of looking at blood sugar, and that's more for like one of those continuous glucose monitors. So 70% of the time we want to be in that target range.
All right.
Oh, well, and also with the labs, the glucose level, does that matter?
They're with labs, you're probably getting A1C, and then you're probably getting a fasting blood sugar.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. Shelley is asking if if you could show the slide of the American Diabetes Association resources.
Yes.
And I guess one question is, are you willing to share your slides with us? And I can send them out along with a link to the recording to everybody who's attended.
Yes.
That'd be great.
Okay. I will email that to you today.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for coming. That was really informative. I really appreciate. I just got my blood test results yesterday, so that was really helpful to have this information. The next Gray Anatomy session in January is on Tuesday, the 21st. We're going to talk about the Take Heart program with Tanya Eckhart from the Cardiovascular Specialists of Lawrence. So I think it's all about how to keep your heart healthy, which is always a good thing to know more about. So with that, I think I'll stop the sharing and bring everybody back and just say thank you for being here. We really, really appreciate it. And yeah, we hope to see you again at another retroactive event. If not, we'll see you next month at the Gray Anatomy session. So have a wonderful evening.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you too.